Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. We are back in the studio. So glad to be here. Glad you're with us. Since it's our first time back in the studio in a while, we may have a few glitches here and there. Bear with us. We have a great show lined up. I thought I'd take the first segment just to thank everyone for all the support that we've had over the years and your interest in our show. I also wanted to tie it to kind of what's going on here locally. We've got elections coming up in November. I've been out there talking to a lot of people. I've heard a lot of positive things that need to be addressed, and things that are a little bit on the fearful side for some folks. So I wanted to take the first segment just to say, hey, we're back. We've recovered from COVID. The economy seems to be stabilizing a little bit. Gas prices are looking a little better. And with the elections coming up, we have a chance to voice our opinions on our electeds and why that's important. I've had a lot of discussions with a lot of people in terms of the actual cost of living going up, in terms of the increasing of cost of goods, gas prices. People don't understand why we just can't lower taxes and ride this out. Well, that's not exactly doable, and it's not a long-term fix. Take here locally in Fairfax County, and even in my town of Herndon. There are capital improvements that need to be done, things that can't be put off, things that are already delayed because they don't go funded for years. So if you think about your own household, we keep kicking down the required repairs on a home or the required maintenance on our cars. Eventually things break down and they need to be repaired. So if you think about it, your taxes, that's the cost we pay to live in a civilized society with services, whether it's roads, fresh water, drinkable water, sewage, mass transit, things that the general public uses. That's basically what we need to keep focused. We can't cut our way out of this recession. We can't cut our way out of inflation. There's a balance that we need to achieve. And I think we need to take a little bit extra time and think about what type of community, type of county, commonwealth, and country do we want to be a part of? Are we willing to invest here, now, and into the future? That includes things like schools, education, teachers, police, training programs for people that aren't going to go to college. Are we going to invest in these other areas that build a foundation for economic growth and opportunity for more people? I think it's worth it. And I've talked to a lot of people, they think it's not a good use of tax dollars. Well, philosophically, that's where we differ. And I think I would pose the question to you, the viewer, and people that are going to be voting this November. What do you want in terms of your community, the county, and the country to be? Do we want to continue to try to extract and isolate ourselves? Or are we going to be part of this larger American experiment? Remember that our march to a more perfect union is never over. We have to constantly change. We constantly have to adapt. Our institutions need to reflect that too. We need to be more agile to deliver the services that taxpayers demand. And you as taxpayers are entitled to demand more of your institutions. And I think that comes from my corporate background and certainly from your all's exposure to commercial entities. If you think about it, you're provided a service by a Fortune 500 company. Your expectation's here. So why shouldn't your government institution, your municipalities, your federal government, your state governments, be as responsive to provide the services that you need in time? Institutions need to be more flexible in terms of how they implement their solutions and services to their constituents. So I would ask all you that are going to be voting, what is your level of expectation for the taxes that you're contributing into the system? And I would ask that everyone focus on those short-term and long-term priorities as you define them, and question your elected officials on that. Remember, those streets don't get paved for free. Those ADA compliant sidewalks aren't free. Fresh, safe drinking water is not free. Ask the folks in Flint, Michigan, or Missouri. There's a cost for not investing in our community. There's a cost for not looking long-term for these solutions. We're not going to continue to cut our way out of creating and sustaining a healthy, safe environment. Anyone that tells you we can cut taxes and still deliver services, it's not being completely honest. It's a false equivalence to say we can do that and still achieve a level of service. Again, here in Fairfax County, Northern Virginia, it's a different environment than if you go south and west. I love taking a motorcycle ride or bicycle ride out in Fauquier County or Culpeper. But those tax structures are completely different than the needs of Fairfax, Arlington, Loudoun counties. It's just a completely different model. We live here in this Northern Virginia area in a more dense, populated environment, which requires investment in our infrastructures, where we share. We share a common interest, we share a common collective good. Now I know people are going to get a little bent out of this, where we start talking about government controlling things, government controlling, production and things like that. I'm not suggesting socialism or communism. Although some people, my friends on the other side, are okay with they're not okay with government controlling production, but they're okay with controlling women's reproduction. So how do we deal with that? I wanted to have a guest this evening to really talk about, really for me, this hits home. It's one of the more impacting things that I've seen in the few years. As a Latino, I'm very sensitive to the culture and the demands and the challenges of Latinos, Latinas growing up in this country, growing up in a neighborhood or an area that may not be completely supportive or empathetic to the needs. Tonight I have a guest that you're going to completely enjoy having conversations with. I'll first introduce her, then we'll talk about the organization that she supports. But I just want you to know that this, for me, is a very important issue because it goes to choice and self-determination. And if young people, young women, Latinas, aren't given that opportunity, then we're shutting the door on their potential growth and their potential outcomes. So with me tonight, I'd like to introduce my guest. Khenia Haro-Perez serves as the Virginia State Policy Advocate at the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. And I want to bring her on. I think she's on. I'm told she's on. And Khenia, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Cesar.
Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry for the delayed intro, but we have a few technical difficulties here. But I'm glad you're able to join us and you can hear me.
Yes, all great.
So thanks for coming on. And first and foremost, welcome to the show. I just want to give the opportunity for you to kind of tell us about yourself and how you came to be involved with the organization. And then we'll get into the organization and some of their objectives and things in the next segment. So just briefly, how did you come to get involved with this organization?
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Cesar. I think, as you mentioned, and how being Latino has really just impacted your life in many ways, and all of the ways that you approach things, how your life has been changed in that way. I think for me, it was the same. Um, I come from a family of immigrants, being first generation American, and so I saw my mother, who is an immigrant, and who was undocumented at the time, struggle to receive a certain level of care, namely reproductive care. And I just saw how, you know, in order for her to get services, for her to get basic health care, which is reproductive care, she just went through so many hoops. She lacked so many accessible resources that are accessible to other communities, right? Like, those pertaining to language justice, receiving appropriate materials in Spanish, which is her first language, being able to go to a provider that she felt comfortable with. And so many things that intersected with her life that precluded or limited her access is really what got me into this work, especially since immigrants, you know, are disproportionately affected with their access to reproductive care. And so that's really why I got into this, to be able to advocate for people like my mother.
That's a great background. And a lot of what you were saying, again, it resonates with me. I have two younger sisters. I have a family where I have 51 first cousins, and more than half of them are females, obviously. So for me, it's an issue that hits home. It's sometimes a little hard for me to talk about, but I want to thank you for being on tonight. We're going to get into a lot more about this. We've got a whole show set up to just devote to this because this is such an important topic. So I appreciate you coming on. We're going to get into, as I said, a little bit more about your background and the organization and why you're doing what you're doing, why the organization is doing what it does, and how it's doing it, and what else needs to be done going forward. So if we can break it down into those segments, I think we'll have a really good, thorough review of not just what you bring, but what the organization brings and how it can impact people's lives going forward. So folks, stay with us. We have a great show coming up, and we'll be back momentarily after this public service announcement. And again, thank you for joining us. We're back in the studio live as we go, so come back and join us in the next segments. Okay, I can barely hear her.
Hi.
Can you hear her?
Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right?
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him.
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that'll bring the trauma. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate, and that's exactly how anger works and operates. Man, you gotta have love just to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love, y'all.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. When you practice what you preach, but you turn the other
Ma'am,
cheek.
you forgot your purse.
Oh, you don't know how worried I was. Thank you very much.
Hey.
Honesty. Pass it on.
Nice move, kid.
Donut?
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Welcome back, and again with my guest, Khenia Haro-Perez, who serves as the Virginia State Policy Advocate at a great organization. We're going to learn a lot more about the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. Khenia, again, thank you so much for being with us. Talk to us a little bit about what's unique about this organization. What's its mission? What is it trying to accomplish here?
Yeah. So the Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice is a very special org in the fact that it addresses abortion care and access in a different way. It approaches it from a reproductive justice framework. Essentially, in this way, we center our three main values, which are salud, dignidad, and justicia. That means health, dignity, and justice. Those are our three pillars simply because we believe that it is a human right, that no matter where you live, your immigration status, your income level, you should always receive adequate health care because it is a right, and that should always include abortion. We fight for dignity because regardless of your race, religion, nationality, age, sexual orientation, whatever it may be, you should be able to get care without a stigma. And finally, for justice, we believe that every family has the resources they need to thrive and live without fear of deportation or the criminalization of our community. And so we just approach this from a multifaceted way. At Latina Institute, we recognize that our lives at Latinas intersect with so many other things. And we remove these barriers to abortion access by addressing the things that intersect with our communities that, reduce our access. And that's what we're attempting to do, is remove those barriers.
So why are those barriers up in the first place? What's creating these barriers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cesar. So a lot of these barriers, first and foremost, being Latina, we are disproportionately affected by certain things, right? Most of our community members, have differing immigration statuses, whether that be legal status or not, documented or not. Our community is also disproportionately affected with a lower access to healthcare. A lot of our community members, especially in Virginia, don't have that access. They are disproportionately affected by having lower wages, lower incomes. And so because of these things that disproportionately affect our communities, that affects our access, right? If we can't afford to miss a day off from work, then how are we going to be able to drive ourselves to get adequate care, right? Adequate abortion care? Are we going to be able to take a day off? Statistically, we know that 60% of the people receiving abortion care are already parents themselves. And so will they be able to find childcare for their already existing children? Will they be able, to jump through all of these hoops that already disproportionately affect our communities? And so that's essentially what we're trying to attack.
Oh, great. I was interested in the stat. Did I hear you correctly? 60% are already parents?
Correct. So according to our research, 60% of the people receiving abortion care are already parents. And so that is really one of the things that intersects with our communities. And how will, a parent be able to afford the child care, afford to be able to miss a day of wages in order to receive this care that should be more accessible to them, right?
Yeah, the reason I focused on that, I wanted to clarify that because maybe it's my perception, maybe it's the stories or the people that I'm connected with, but it seems that there's a higher pregnancy rate amongst Latinas, younger in our community. And I'll say our community because I'm a Latino, but am I off on that? Maybe I observational, help me with that.
Well, Cesar, I'm not quite sure about that specific statistic about Latinas and their rate of pregnancy and age. But what I can tell you is that our community deserves the same accessibility to abortion care that any other community should receive. And what we are seeing right now is that Latinas are disproportionately affected as we speak. And we are right now in that fight to increase that access, to remove those barriers. And regardless of age and frequency in which it occurs, we will continue to do that.
How has it been? How's the work, the job going? I mean, do you feel you're making progress on this?
Yeah, Cesar. So what I can say in my capacity as Virginia State advocate for the Latina Institute, policy advocate, is that, we knew for quite some time that Roe v. Wade was going to fall, right? We knew that it was going to be challenged. It had been challenged for some time. And so we were preparing for that. So I think that we've already been operating at a deficit, right? A lot of things had already been happening in Texas, a state that we're also in, with a lot of their bans and a lot of things going on. And so we were kind of equipping ourselves for this fight. And we've already been doing a lot of work to combat this. We've been strengthening mutual aid funds like in the abortion clinics within Hampton Roads, Virginia itself, like the Hampton Roads Reproductive Justice League, the New River Abortion Fund. Because we saw this coming, we were implementing and fortifying the systems that we have in place in order to ensure that we could carry this out in a sustainable way.
So in terms of, you mentioned Texas there, I cringe when I read some of these laws or these proposed restrictions. And I tried to make the connection that some people are okay controlling women, controlling young women, controlling certain women, and limiting their choices for the outcome they want for their lives. I mean, to me, that's freedom, right? I mean, you have that right. And then you deal with the consequences to make your choices. It confuses me why we're having this sort of battle. Where do you think it's coming from? And maybe let's talk about here in Virginia. I thought we had made a little more progress at the state level. Maybe I've got that wrong.
Well, Cesar, that's actually a great point that you bring up. What's really great about Virginia right now is even at the state level, I would like to emphasize, because I haven't said it yet, but abortions are legal in Virginia. We have no bans in Virginia precluding our access, and that is really a wonderful thing, especially as it relates to our proximity with other southern states and what's going on currently. In Virginia, you can still get an abortion. You can still have access to an abortion at clinics within the state. And so that is great news for us as advocates for the state. And so really what we're doing is making sure that that access remains, sustainable. It remains a certain future for people in the Commonwealth that are accessing abortion care. In Virginia, a couple sessions ago, we removed trap laws, which remove a lot of those barriers to access that were presently in the Commonwealth, like waiting periods and sonograms, right? And so we don't have a lot of those barriers that other states have, which we're really grateful for. And that's as a result of all the, the lobbying and things that we've done in prior sessions. And so what we'll be continuing to do is, fortifying what we do have, really remaining on the ground, doing grassroots works that advances the systems we have in place, like those abortion funds, like other mutual aid efforts that are going to keep strengthening our community systems. That's going to help this access to abortion care that we want with our community members that are most vulnerable.
So if you had to put sort of a priority list together, what's the first thing that needs to change to get to where you think you need to be on this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cesar. I think that first and foremost, there needs to be a culture narrative shift. I think that we need to really get comfortable with being in our communities, talking to fellow constituents, talking to our family members, our loved ones, friends, telling them, first that we need to talk about abortions, and we need to just say it, that abortion care is health care, and it is a right, and everyone should have access to it. I think that that's the first step, is really taking that culture narrative shift within our own communities, and really creating that change ourselves with how we talk with other folks, right? I also think that, especially within the Latina community, we really need to mobilize in creating that, fostering that communication, that connection with our own people, right? I think that at Latina Institute, we've been doing a lot of work with other orgs like Catholics for Choice, because we've seen that intersection with the Latina community and the community of faith, right? They're very interwoven together. And so we've used that as a way to partner with Catholics for Choice and really get our community on board that, you know, the community of faith and the Latina community are so close, and there are a lot of advocates within the community of faith that also believe in choice and abortion access, like Catholics for Choice. And so partnering with other orgs and seeing the community, seeing themselves represented, and not just within their own ethnicity or cultural group, but also within their community of faith, is something that really needs to change too. Really engaging with our community in all of the other groups that they intersect with, so that they can see their community represented, and they can see that it is okay, right? And it's okay to talk about these things, and that their other communities also support it.
I'm glad to hear that that is a focus, because you know as well as I do, the parents, the immigrants, the Latina culture, it's very simpatico, right? But it's very conservative because of the faith, right? And because of the faith, it drives sort of the perspective that I think the younger generation has. I think once you're a generation or two, you're probably a little bit more, free from that, but definitely faith plays a huge part in the culture. And certainly, the shift that, we can talk about this in the next segment, but I'm glad to hear that is a focus, because as far as outreach, that absolutely needs to happen. That is the tune for the next public service announcement break. So Khenia, if you hang on, and you at home, please hang on. We'll be right back after this public service announcement. Again, we're here with Khenia Haro-Perez from the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. We'll be right back. You doing all right there?
Yes.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul.
Estimated time, 47 hours.
They will beg.
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
They will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking.
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thank you again for joining us. Back in the studio, live with me, we have a very special guest, Khenia Haro-Perez. She serves as the Virginia State Policy Advocate at the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. Khenia, thank you again for coming back. Very important topic. Want to certainly get back into the discussion before the break. We touched on the faith, the impact of that on the culture, and the types of outreach you're doing in that sense. What other additional resources or outreach are you trying or you think you need to get there?
Yeah, so really what we're doing on the ground, as I mentioned previously, is fortifying our existing systems and networks that we've been continuously engaging with. And so the Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice, the one that the Virginia-based one, is actually in a larger coalition of other organizations called the Virginia Reproductive Equity Alliance. And so within this coalition group, we have all of the orgs within it have created their own grassroots efforts, their own organizing efforts, and have collectively joined in to create larger efforts, mobilizations, and policy efforts to be able to have a stronger group altogether advocate for Virginia's people seeking in favor of abortion care, right? And so this coalition has done a lot of their own events, organizing efforts, which folks can plug into via our social media sites. It's VREA or Virginia Reproductive Equity Alliance everywhere. And primarily what we do out of this coalition is, bolster efforts that increase our access to things. And so we have a lot of events. We have policy webinars to inform folks of what's going on ahead of legislative sessions. And we just put on a lot of events that really inform the community of what's going on and how they can get engaged, more locally anyway.
Good to know. Are there any specific areas in Virginia that you've targeted or are looking to target? Full disclosure, I represent Herndon as vice mayor on the town council. And if people do not know, Herndon is, last I checked, 38% Latino residents. So whatever I can do to help facilitate that, or maybe you're already doing it, but Herndon's out there as well as other towns. So are there any specific towns or regions that you're targeting?
Yeah, and that's really a great question. We get this so much, Cesar, about how people can plug in and get involved based on where they are regionally. I'll tell you, the coalition is everywhere, as well as Latina Institute. We have organizers on the ground right now organizing in every effort, whether that's Southwest Virginia, Northern Virginia, Richmond, Hampton Roads. We're really based out of everywhere. This summer, we had actions in Richmond, in Hampton Roads, in Norfolk. We also had actions up close to where you are in Manassas, in Annandale region. And so we've really been everywhere. Recently, this past Wednesday, which was the start of the special legislative session, we mobilized out to Richmond to rally. There was rumors or thoughts that a ban could come down. And so we wanted to show solidarity and have a rapid response, proactively go out to the Capitol and show ourselves. And so we did that last week. And I encourage folks to plug in because even if you're not close to where we'll have a mobilization, last Wednesday we did bus people out and put that on for the coalition. So that way people wouldn't have to worry about transportation or costs. And so we're really everywhere, and we could help facilitate people to mobilize if they needed it. We never want access to be a barrier to why people can't get involved into the movement.
Excellent. What is the what's the best way people can than connect or contribute, either volunteer or with dollars? I mean, what's the best way for folks to support the cause?
Yeah, I really just encourage folks to get plugged in regionally to their regional mutual aid efforts. I think if you're out west or the Valley, the New River Abortion Fund is great. If you're in Hampton Roads, the Hampton Roads Reproductive Justice League, and other orgs like this, just mutual aid efforts that help folks increase their access to abortion care, that give rides to people that need to get to appointments. So just different things like that. You know, these organizations are already on the ground doing a lot of work, you know, that directly impacts people that need care as soon as possible in a timely fashion. And so I would really encourage people to, you know, strengthen their local indie abortion funds and other mutual aid efforts. I also encourage you to follow the Latina Institute on our social media sites, because we're constantly, you know, trying to get involved in the community, engaging with our community members. We affectionately call our activists poderosas, which means strong people. And so we're continuously out in the community trying to engage with folks, get them to mobilize, and doing it in a way that, you know, is accessible to them in their language. And really piques their interest. And you can follow us everywhere at Latina Institute, and you'll be able to find us and donate at our website, latinainstitute.org.
Excellent. What's been the biggest challenge for you in terms of getting the response you want? I mean, there's success, and we can talk about how you view success, but what's been the biggest challenge getting you there? What are you trying to overcome the most?
I think right now we're just trying to, I think everything's going to be a challenge, right, in this post-Roe world or America that we're in. So there are a lot of challenges. What I will say is that the biggest thing that we're trying to defeat is this negative stigma that we have, not just within our community, our Latina community, but abroad as well. According to our own research, we know that even though, as you mentioned previously, Latinas, you know, kind of have a rap for being extremely conservative or not really supportive of abortion or abortion care, we know that 7 out of 10 Latinas actually support abortion and abortion care, right? And so we know overwhelmingly that it's supported within our community. And we're actively trying to dismantle this negative stigma and trying to remove this, you know, closeness or proximity that we have to conservatism, and that how that affects how we feel about abortion care, right? And so that's really what we're up against the most, is really trying to shift that cultural narrative and trying to change how we talk about abortions to, you know, really get in our community and say, look, we actually really support this according to our polling, and we really need to take a more active effort in destigmatizing abortion care and access, because we know that it's supported. And so if we can remove that negative stigma and engage with our community so they can see that it's really healthcare, then we can begin to really mobilize and, I think, do life-changing work in this post-Roe America.
And that's, I think, it's good to hear that you've sort of adjusted the approach to, and I think, I mean, I was personally surprised. I mean, I kind of thought Roe would be changed, but I didn't really, I guess I couldn't let myself believe it would actually be overturned and thrown back to the states, right? And the way they kind of made the ruling, it just, I was a little surprised. Not completely, but just, and it caused me to think about, well, you've got a lot of now younger women, and certainly women of all age, I shouldn't qualify it's younger, but they've lost that right, and I've said it before, self-determination, right? I find that remarkable in the country that espouses the pursuit of life, liberty, and freedom. We've really put women in a very unproductive and, quite frankly, unfair environment when we've, as a country, allowed that right to be taken away. Am I missing something here? I mean, I can't understand why people that claim they're for freedom, they're for less government, and anything for the greater good is either socialist or communist. We can't have government control production, but let's control female reproduction. I have a hard time balancing those two things. Am I just missing something here? I mean, this is why I'm passionate about this. I don't get it. Help me.
I completely agree with you, Cesar. I mean, we at Latina Institute, and me personally, firmly believe that the choice, to have family planning, to make whatever decision you want to make about your body should be your own decision, right? We believe in complete bodily autonomy, and that should be anyone's own proper decision. We know that politicians have been working for decades to make abortion as difficult as possible to get. And we know that some people may still have an increased access to abortion care, even in this time. But as it relates to the Latina community, we will continue to have that decreased access. And that's really what frightens me the most, is that, even though in Virginia, we are kind of regarded as a safe haven state because we have easier access to abortion and more laws that really protect pregnant people. We know that we're still faced with an unfriendly administration, and we have to be on alert. And so this is just kind of what we're up against right now, fighting for bodily autonomy. And we don't agree with it, right? Because we believe that abortion care is health care, and that no matter what, that kind of feeds into our three pillars. You should have this access to salud, dignidad y justicia, which is health, dignity, and justice. In our community, we're just going to continue to see this disproportionate care. Our community is going to face the brunt of this. Black, brown, indigenous people are going to feel the effects of this for time to come. We're going to be the ones affected with longer traveling distances, paying out of pocket without insurance coverages, making childcare difficult to get, right? That's all going to affect us more. And so we have to take action.
Okay, Khenia, thanks for that. And folks, stick around. We have one final segment. Khenia, when we come back, I do want to touch base on that sort of transient support and some of the other stuff that's got me really fired up. Folks, we'll be right back. Please join us in a few seconds here.
Nice going, Spencer. I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
See you, dude.
See ya. You never mean you're well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Hi. Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice. Homeless minds. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
My special guest, Khenia Haro-Perez, who serves as the Virginia State Policy Advocate at the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. Khenia, thank you so much for doing the show for us tonight. Very important topic. I wanted to make sure we touch on a couple things. We touched a little bit in the previous segment, and that is Virginia and kind of the role it may or may not play in providing access for women in terms of maybe the regional surrounding areas. We're hearing stories of young women or families taking young women's across state lines. Is that something that you see or Virginia may play a role in, being that for now it's certainly an option for women and families?
Yeah, that's actually a great point that you bring up, Cesar. Things like this are things that we're already seeing, not in Virginia, but definitely in other states that Latina Institute is in. I previously mentioned Texas. And in Texas, abortions are already illegal. They've been banned. And so right now, pregnant people in Texas, people seeking abortion care are having to travel long distances or having to go out of state a lot of times to receive care, which is healthcare that they should be receiving close to them, right? I think in Virginia, we're in a very special situation where other states can flock to Virginia for abortion care that they might not have access to in their home state. And so I think that Virginia will play a very crucial role on the other hand in that, in being able to be a safe haven to other people trying to access that care.
Is that, does that potentially put Virginia in, I hate to use the phrase, but in the crosshairs or as a target for some of these national groups that are trying to eliminate choice nationwide? I mean, is that a concern?
Well, I think that's always a concern, right? We're always going to be faced with some level of attacks to abortion care, crossing state lines. It's always a possibility. But up until this moment, there are no laws. There is nothing precluding someone from crossing state lines and receiving care in another place where they previously couldn't. There are also a lot of companies, a lot of organizations that are strengthening those efforts and are assisting people financially and with other resources too, in order to receive care in those other places. So right now, while that may be an issue or could be an issue, it is not currently, and we're still seeing that people can receive care even if they cross state lines.
Well, let's pray that that remains the case. I think there's certainly a time where people need to respond, right? People needs to proactively do something that's going to change the course of where this decision has taken the country. Certainly your organization, you, and what you're advocating for, I'm totally supportive, and I think we just need to really get people more aware of what's happened. I don't think it's sunk in yet. I think it, but I'm worried that it hasn't. I think it's sunk in, but I'm worried that it hasn't completely sunken into folks. So that's my major concern with this.
Yeah, and it's a valid one, Cesar. I think that that's why we're doing so much engagement on the ground to really change these hearts and minds, to really get the information out there that, look, people overwhelmingly support this. People overwhelmingly support bodily autonomy. People support increasing access. And so I think that that's where we need to keep our efforts, and we need to keep strengthening what we have on the ground, because this is an effort that's going to take a long time, and we need to be able to sustainably carry through by fostering these efforts on the ground and continue to engage with our community.
Are people that, well, let me rephrase it. Are elected officials that had initially supported a ban on choice. Have you heard or discussed or connected with any that have had some, I guess, buyer's remorse? Is it coming to fruition? Is it coming to the surface for some of these elected officials that were kind of on this path to completely eliminate choice? Have you heard of or talked to or know of any elected officials that are having some second thoughts on the ruling?
Up until now, I think that overwhelmingly in the Virginia legislature, choice and access to abortion care is overwhelmingly supported. I think that when there was questions of that, at least within the Virginia legislature, and when there was a push recently to include certain budget amendments, namely Amendment 30, which folks saw a couple of months ago try to come in, which would have placed precluded or limited access to a late term abortion to a pregnant person that needed it. And so that was shut down immediately in the Virginia legislature, and that budget amendment did not pass, was not signed in. And so I think that that's an important statement, that there is engagement on both sides in Virginia. I think that there's overwhelming support within it. And I think it's just about continuing to have those conversations so that the Virginia legislature knows that constituents overwhelmingly support this, that it's okay for them to talk about it. And I think that they're on board. Last week, as I mentioned within the special session, Leader Scott and Delegate Cherniel Hearing gave amazing floor speeches in which they advocated for reproductive freedom and the legislative efforts towards that. And so I think that there's support, there's buy-in, and we're excited for the future and how we can continue to combat this within the Virginia legislature.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing what the contrarian view is to restoring choice. I mean, restoring the freedom, and I've said it before, the right of self-determination. What is the contrarian view to that? Because again, maybe I'm being like big brother protector here because I have two sisters, and I can't help this, but I just don't like the thought of someone dictating what they can choose with their lives. And I'm just interested to, what's the contrarian view to what you're trying to do? I can't, what's the message? Because it's overwhelmingly a right that's supported, a choice that's supported by the average person in the country. So what's the argument for why we need to go down this path?
Well, I can't answer to why
Good.
But I can't answer to that. But what I can say is that we're going to continue on the ground to show people that we do overwhelmingly support it.
Yeah, and I think the general public is certainly on this side. I think they're on the right side. Yeah. And I think the more and more, not just women, but the people that love women, their families, spouses, brothers, cousins, start to realize what has been taken away. I mean, that for me is such like an outrage. So whatever I can personally do, I know as a host I'm supposed to be neutral, but this is too much of an important issue that it can't be ignored. And if anyone can help me understand what that contrarian view is, please email me, send me information on why removing a right from an individual is a good thing, especially when it has to do with their bodily autonomy, their choice, right? Did we miss anything in tonight's discussion, Khenia?
No, I think I just want to continue bolstering these efforts that we have on the ground. I encourage all those watching to plug into mutual aid efforts. Please connect with the Latina Institute. We're at latinainstitute.org. You can subscribe, email to our list. We have monthly events. We have a newsletter, so many different ways that you can get connected. And at Latina Institute, we firmly believe in language justice. And we do believe that if you want to get involved, you can still involve even if you're a monolingual Spanish speaker. We have resources for that. And so I just encourage you to get connected to everything that we're doing. And we want to continue to engage with our community.
And I would add to that, please visit the website. Please do the research. Donate your time, your money, your energy. Donate your network of connections. Because I think the more the word gets out, the better this will end up. And we're wrapping up here. I just personally want to thank you for the time that you've shared with us this evening. I think this is a just and honorable thing that you're doing with the organization. And I personally want to wish you all the best, and whatever I can do to continue to support and help and promote this, we'll have you back on. I'd like to maybe invite you back after the election to see what the outcome was and see what the status of the organization is. So I hope you're open to that.
Yes, I would love that, Cesar. And thank you so much for having me on to talk about this important issue.
Absolutely. And to the folks that are still watching, we want to thank you for joining us this evening. I know we're back live in the studio here. It feels good to be talking to people. It feels good to be talking about these issues, especially an issue like choice that impacts so many young women and families across the country. This is not an economic issue. It's not a political issue. This is an issue of choice. And again, I've said it a few times, but self-determination is the core of our country's values. It is a right in the Constitution. It is something that we were born and inherited. And recently, the Supreme Court eliminated that for our sisters, our wives, our spouses, our loved ones. So I encourage you all to get involved. And if you have that contrarian view, please email me, because I'd like to be educated. If I'm missing something, let me know. I want to thank the staff here, the volunteers, and all of the viewers out there for watching the show. We have got a lot more to do. It's campaign season, a lot of issues we got to promote. So make sure you're out there, your voice is heard, and that change is going to happen. We need to continue that march to a more perfect union. Thanks for your time.